Hey, this is Rez for Voxai.com, and I want to show you a really cool plugin for Houdini called Modeler. Now, I have used this in the past successfully. In fact, some of the models you might see in the courses are created in fact with Modeler, or at least a combination of Modeler and ZBrush. And this Modeler plugin was really good in the past, but now with Modeler 2025, everything is even better. So I really wanted to make a video showing some of the features and how everything works. Now, there's really a lot of features and I probably can't cover all of them in one single video, but at least I want to show you some of the coolest features that we have in Modeler. So, direct modeling in Houdini was always possible to some extent, meaning that if, for example, I were to drop down a cube, let's maybe step inside and just increase the divisions here, I can do some direct modeling just with the basic Houdini toolset, meaning that I can press S to go into component selection mode and I can grab a face, or I can grab points with 2 or edges with 3. So with 4 we are going to grab some faces, and I can grab maybe a set over here, and if I want to extrude this I would have to press tab and do poly extrude, and then Houdini added a bunch of viewport handles to make this easier, so I can grab this handle over here and I can extrude this, and if I want to create another extrusion I can do another poly extrude, and this will append it in my chain over the selected face. You can see the group over here, and for example maybe here I want to inset this, or I can use the viewport control, so I can select the inset amount over here and I can maybe drag this forward, and I can press 2 to go into point mode. I can press T and I can use my middle mouse click to drag points around. I can use my scroll wheel to maybe activate the soft selection, and there's really a lot of stuff that we can do, but you can see right away. So for example, if I want to make any kind of operation, I have to press tab and select that operation, so I have to type bridge. So maybe we want to do a poly bridge, and like I showed you earlier with extrude, you have to press tab, select the node that you want to do, or the operation rather. So this is really not ideal with direct modeling. You want to stay inside the viewport as much as possible, and you want to use as many hotkeys as possible. So the way Modeler works, I'll go ahead and let's get rid of this. And after you install Modeler, you can go to the shelf tool over here, and the way Alexei, the guy who developed Modeler, recommended to use Modeler is by going to the shelf sets here, and this will be cut off the screen, but you can go to the shelf sets and you can disable the lights camera action, so this will get rid of this set over here, and we can go back to the shelf sets and we can choose the Modeler shelf set, and this will bring all of the shelves related to Modeler over here, and we can see right away, maybe I'll increase this, we can see right away that we really have a lot of different operations that we can do. So this is what I mentioned earlier in the video, that I probably won't be able to go over all of this, maybe just to highlight a few of the coolest features. So in the past, what you would do with Modeler, you would have to go inside Modeler mode. You would have a button here that said, I believe, activate Modeler, and you would click that, and then this would change the Houdini interface and the hotkeys to work with Modeler. And then when you wanted to exit Modeler, you would just click that icon again. So honestly, this wasn't that bad, but in the latest version in 2025, Modeler works by default. You don't have to activate anything. The only thing that you have to do is set the key maps. So if I click this set key map over here, I will change this to Modeler, and now I am in Modeler mode, so to say. So if I press Alt W, we can see that we have access to a lot of radial menus, and we'll go over all of these in a second, but now essentially I can press Alt Q, and this will give me some presets of some of the built-in objects that we can drop. So maybe I want to use a Q box, and now I am in Modeler mode. So a lot of objects and a lot of operations come with a palm slider option, meaning that if I hold down Z and I drag the mouse to the right, I can increase the divisions of this cube. And we'll talk a little bit more about this Z hotkey. So this is the palm slider, but in the case for a Q box, this will adjust the divisions of our geometry. So all I'm doing is holding down Z and moving my mouse to the right to increase, and moving the mouse to the left to decrease the subdivision. So this is already really great. And now, for example, if I want to do an extrude like I did earlier, we can press 4 to select polygons, but really a better way to select components in modeler mode is if I hold down the tilde key. This will give us another radial menu, and we can either select the edges, points, or faces from over here. So all you would have to do, hold down the tilde key, hover over the faces, and this will go into face selection mode. And if I want to go into point mode, I will hold down tilde, go to points, release the hotkey, and now I can select the points. So after you get used to this, it's going to be really second nature to create the selections. So you can see we can really easily cycle through all of these modes. You can still use the 2, 3, and 4 keyboard shortcuts that come with Houdini, but really I would recommend getting used to this method of selecting it with the tilde key, because this will come in handy later. After you add some certain operations, you might not be able to jump into component selection mode with the hotkeys directly, so 2, 3, and 4, but this option with the tilde key really forces the selection to work. So this is my recommendation to get used to this. Now let's go into faces and let's try to do the same type of extrusion. So I will select these faces over here, and instead of pressing tab and dropping down a poly extrude or whatever operation, we have some hotkeys with modeler, so I can press Shift F, and now I will simply hold down, click, and drag on my screen to extrude the faces. And a lot of these tools also you can see at the bottom of the screen here, we have some combinations that we can use. So for example, if I want to inset the faces, I can press Shift F again, and instead of just simply click drag in, I can hold down Shift and click drag, and this will create an inset. So regular click drag will translate our selection, and Shift click and drag will adjust the inset. So already this is way faster. I can do Shift F to add another extrusion, and we can see that this will automatically add all of our operations to the chain. So this is also really cool, because at any point I can go back to any of these operations and I can follow the chain. So this it kind of works like a history. If you worked in Maya, I believe there we also have the history of every operations that you can go and modify. This natively works with how Houdini is set up, which is probably a little bit better. So again, I can press Shift F, and if I want to create an inset, I can hold down Shift and click drag. Let's do Shift F and click drag. Let's do another inset. So Shift F, hold down Shift and drag, and very easily we can start to build geometry. So really, this is the base of how stuff works with modeler. Alexei leveraged all of the existing operations that you could do in Houdini and assigned them to hotkeys to work seamlessly when you are using the modeler key map. And some of these operations will resemble the stuff that comes with Houdini, but you can see that this extrude here is actually not the same as the poly extrude that Houdini comes with. So if I drop this down, we can see that this is the default that Houdini provides, and this extrude is different. So this is a new node that comes with modeler. So I believe that the way this works is that he took the base of some of these tools and he added on top of those other operations, and he made it easier to work with them inside the viewport by doing different hotkey combinations. So for example, inset is by holding down Shift and click dragging. And really some of the tools, and we'll see this in a second, some of the tools really have a lot of hotkeys that you can use inside the viewport, and it really creates a super nice experience with direct modeling. So let's maybe do some more operations here. So maybe I'll go back into faces with the tilde key. I'll select all of these faces here. If I want to get rid of them, I can press S. And now maybe I can select the edges. I can select these two edges. And for example, if I want to bridge them, I can press B, and this will create a bridge. And now again, we have the option to use the palm slider, meaning that if I hold down Z and I move my mouse to the right, we can increase the divisions of this bridge. And a lot of operations also come with different operations that you can do with the Z hotkeys. And at any point, by the way, we can go inside the parameters for the operations that we are doing. So if we want to do something really specific, for example, in the case for bridge, and you can see that bridge again is a modeler specific node. So this doesn't come with the default Houdini toolset. We can go to the parameters here, and for example, we can decide on a thickness for our bridge. So I can go ahead and we can see how this changes over here. I can control this here, and there's also a twist ramp over here, so I can twist the bridge faces like this. And always I can, if I'm over the viewport, I can hold down Z and I can increase the divisions. So really cool stuff. We can of course also do a bevel. So I can select an edge over here, and if I hold down Shift A and select the edge at the end, we can select this entire loop. And if I do Shift B, we can go ahead and click drag inside the viewport to change or rather adjust the width of this bevel. So again, here we also have the palm slider. So I will hold down Z and I will move to the right to increase the divisions. And here, like I mentioned earlier, if I just tap Z, we can see that this will change the mode of our bevel. So we are going here from crease to round, and this will also give us new properties that we can edit directly inside the viewport as well. So if I press Z again, I can hold down Z to increase the divisions. I can maybe set the convexity over here, so maybe I want this to go in the other way, or I can choose a ramp mode. And with ramp or curve, maybe I have to go over here, or we can change the profile directly. So if I set this, let's say if I set this to ramp, we have the option now to control our geometry with this ramp. So maybe I have to increase the divisions here, and probably here I have to increase the scale for this to work. So I can push this out a little bit and I can increase the divisions. Maybe we can do something more interesting, and we have all the controls that we need for our bevels. So we have a lot of hotkeys for all of these operations, and in fact we can go over here in the modeler shelf. We can go to the hotkeys, and let's open up this window, and we can see all of the hotkeys that Alexei assigned for us. So we have some quick menus over here. We'll go over these in a second, and we have a lot of operations that we can do here. So we have all of the common modeling operations. For example, if I were to grab a ring selection, so I can select this one, hold down Shift A, middle mouse click to do a ring selection. And if I do, I believe, if I want to collapse these, I can do Shift X, I think. Okay, so Shift X will do a connect, which is also something that you might want, but Control Shift X will be this collapse operation, and we can see here edge collapse. So let's undo this. We have all of those operations. Again, we can just reference this hotkeys window that we have over here, and we can see all of the different stuff that we can do. So if I grab this loop here, I can press U, and this will do a push along the normal. So this is sort of like a peak node. We can see again that this is different from the regular Houdini peak. We have some more options here. So if I hold down Z and increase, or rather move my mouse to the right, we can see that we also have a soft selection mode that we can use. So a lot of these common operations are improved with their modeler version. I can also press Y to go into edge slide, and we can slide the edges. So we can use the hotkeys for all of these operations, or we have context sensitive menus. If I press Q, we see all of the different operations that we can do while we are in edge mode. So these are context sensitive, meaning that if I were to go to point mode and press Q, we have different operations that we can do that are maybe only available in the point selection mode. And again, for faces, if I press Q, we have a lot more options because we can probably do more operations on faces. Speaking of which, there's a really cool operation here called push. So if we are in faces mode, if I grab this face over here and press Q, I can select push. And now if I am inside this push operation, if I drag down my selection, we can see how this polygon here, we can either extrude it, but if I push it in the opposite direction, it will create a Boolean operation. And we can see how cool this is to just completely go through the mesh and remove faces like this. So for example, I can go into face mode, select this face over here, press Q, go into push mode, and I can just drag this over in the opposite direction, and we can see this automatic Boolean operation that we create. And this is reminiscing of the ZBrush direct modeling tool. I forget the brush name, maybe it's Z Modeler or something like that. I believe that's where I first saw this kind of thing where you can just extrude a face and push it through an entire mesh and create this Boolean operation. So this is what I believe is happening, that Alexei is looking at all of these different software like Maya and Blender and ZBrush, and whenever he sees a really cool feature like this, he's going to implement it inside Modeler. And really we can see that if I press Q, we have a lot of different operations here, and all of these are extremely useful. Some of them might be only viable in certain situations, but all of these are really nice to have. And just one more note about common operations. The way that Houdini works, like I showed you earlier, if I want to grab a component, so if I want to grab a point here, I'll press 2 to go into point mode. So this is the regular Houdini workflow. I'll select a point, I'll press T if I want to move this, so I can move this around. But now if I want to select another component, I have to press S again and select the component, press T, and then move this. So this is a little bit annoying. I just want to grab a component and move it. So this is why Alexei has a manipulator tool. If I press G, we can see we are inside this manipulator mode. So now I can grab a component, move this around, and I can grab another component, move this around without pressing S and T over and over and having to switch through selection mode and edit mode. And this is a lot more seamless. So this is what I would expect from a direct modeling workflow. But this manipulator is really cool because if I have a component selected, if I middle mouse click and drag, I can move this along the axis, and this will depend on the way that you are moving your mouse. So for example, if I move from left to right, I'm going to push this on the Z axis. And if I want to move this along the Y axis, I just have to mimic the mouse movement that I want. And the same will be on the X axis as well. And if I just want to freely move this without having to select the manipulator from over here, I can just do we can see we have a history here. So we can use Control Shift and click to do a screen align move. So I will hold down Control Shift, and when I click drag, we can just freely move this, and this will be screen align. So it's going to depend on where you are viewing your component, which is really cool because I don't have to be super precise about my movement. I can just select a point and move it with Control Shift and click drag, so I don't have to select it and really try to find the manipulator and move it around like so. But I think in most cases you might want to move this by using the middle mouse click, so you might want to move this on axis. For example, here if I want to push this along the Z, I will just use my middle mouse click and just drag this over. And here as well we have the selection radius. So if I hold down Z and move my mouse to the right, we can increase the soft selection, and all of this is really cool, and you can see how seamless this all integrates. So I can very easily go into faces, select all of the faces here, press X to delete. I can go inside edge mode, and let's maybe double click to create a border edge selection. I can press Control F, which will be fill, and fill comes with different modes as well. So if I hold down Z and move my mouse to the right, we can see the different algorithms that we have over here, and I'll select maybe this quadrilaterals mode, and this will very easily give us a fill selection. There's also, if I press X, let's delete the faces and go back into edge mode, double click, and there's also a face mode. So if I press F, this is another cool operation specific for modeler that you can do, and here as well I can tap Z to change the mode. So this is also a really cool mode. And one really cool thing that you can do with this face operation here is if let's grab the faces and let's delete maybe this row. I will just select this edge here on the left, and if I press F, it's going to automatically find the nearest points or edges to create this fill selection. And I can press F again, F one more time, and I can easily fill back this entire row. So this is also sometimes very useful. So hopefully by now you have an idea at least on how Modeler works, and all of the tools are really great, but I want to showcase a couple of features that are really great and that really elevates Modeler to be an actual contender with all of the other direct modeling DCCs out there like Maya or Blender. And I have a new scene here. We can also either choose to use the shelf set that we have for Modeler, or I can just set the desktop here. We have a Modeler preset. If I set this to this Modeler preset, we can see that this is the ideal environment to model with. We can see that we got rid of the timeline and everything is set. We can see we have all of the Modeler shelves over here, and it's really cool to model in this Modeler desktop over here. Again, I will go to the set key map here and I will change this to Modeler, and let's drop some basic geometry. I will hold down Alt Q and let's maybe choose a Q grid. I will hold down Z and maybe increase the divisions. Let's press Shift W to go into wire shaded, so we can increase the divisions here. And again, I can just select whatever we want. We can select some faces over here. We do Shift F to extrude, and we can work this way. And this is how we work in Modeler. And if I go into either of the component modes, let's go to points. If I press Q, we have a Polypen tool over here. And when I activate this, we can straight away see on the left over here that we really have a lot of different hotkey combinations, and all of these revolve around simple clicks and click dragging, control shift click dragging, and this allows us to work really fast and do a lot of operations in the most efficient way possible. And just a little bit of background, I have started with 3ds Max maybe over 12 or 13 years ago. I started modeling in 3ds Max, I later went on to Cinema 4D, then I believe I tried Maya, I even tried Blender at one point, and none of the softwares have a mode like this. So when we are in this Polypen mode, I haven't found any feature in all of these softwares that really resembles this. Probably the closest that I found, if you are familiar with machine tools in Blender, it kind of has something like this, but the Polypen is even better. And I have no idea how Alexei programmed this. I believe this was written from scratch, and it really went through a lot of iterations over the years. And finally, in Modeler 2025, it's really good. It's the most robust tool that I found in really any modeling software out there. So the way it works, if I want to create a simple cut, we can hold down click and drag to create this cut. I can go ahead and we can connect this. We can see that as I start to click drag, when I get near an edge here, we will get a suggestion. We can see that it will kind of snap to the middle. So if we want to connect this in the middle of the edge, we have this suggestion over here. And also, for example, if I were to click drag, we can see we have the middle here. So if I click drag here, and if I were to hover over the edge on the other side, we can see that we have this suggestion that if we want to connect it to the middle of the edge, but we also have a suggestion for drawing a parallel line to our other edge. So it will look at this edge and it will create a suggestion to create this parallel cut, which is really cool. So this is really powerful. We can very easily start to create geometry, and it's very responsive, very fast, and it just simply feels really good. So for example, now here, if I want to create a loop that goes, or rather flows in this direction, when I click drag and release, if I release it in the middle of the polygon here, it will automatically find either the nearest, I'm not sure how the algorithm works, but it will try to find the best match and automatically create an edge between where I drop the point and the nearest point next to it. So now I can continue to create the cuts over here, and this is by click dragging. And now, for example, if I want to get rid of this edge, I will just simply click without dragging. So just a simple click will either get rid of, it works on any component, so I can get rid of edges like this, or I can get rid of points. And if I want to get rid of the entire face, I can just simply click. So this is already really nice. It's really fast, because if I were to do it in a more standard way, for example, I would have to go to points, and if I want to get rid of these points, I have to select them and press X, and this will get rid of them. Or if I want to go to, let's go to edges here, and I can select these edges, press X to get rid of them. But we can see that I have to go into edge mode, I have to select them, and then I have to press another hotkey to do the operation that I want. Whereas if I press Q and I go to Polypen, and the shortcut to access the Polypen is if you hold down Q and move your mouse to the right, and you do this really fast, it will go in the Polypen mode. If I am in faces mode and I select the faces, and let's say that I grab the manipulator with G, if I want to quickly switch over to the Polypen tool, I will just again hold down Q, move my mouse slightly to the right and release Q, but do this really fast. So I can do something like this, and now I am in Polypen mode. So I can continue to refine my geometry and do all of the fine-tune adjustments like so. So I can keep adding geometry and directing my edge flow wherever I want. So if I want to now get rid of an edge, I will just simply click on the edge that I want to get rid of, or the face. So again, I don't have to select the component, select the operation, and then apply the operation. And you can really, just by remaining in this Polypen mode, you can really build a lot of geometry, and really you can do a lot of stuff. So maybe we can just run over the operations here. So we can see with drag operations, we can use click drag to cut components. We can weld two boundary points. So this means that if I want to connect this point to this point, I can click drag and drag this point all the way over here, and we can connect the points like so. We can connect two curve points. Now we need curves for this, so I will just keep this for now. We can bridge two boundary edges. So if I hover over the edge and hold down click, I can drag this all the way to the other edge and it will create this bridge selection. So for example, if I were to, let's get rid of some faces here, I can hold down click and drag this all the way to the other edge. And now when we are doing this, we also have the Z palm slider. So if I hold down Z, I can drag my mouse to the right and we can set the divisions of this bridge operation. So this is also really cool. And some of these operations will have this Z palm adjusting. We can fill hole by boundary edge. So if I remove some faces here, if I do a click drag over this edge and just release it inside of this hole, it will automatically fill this boundary edge. So now again, I can hold down Z and move my mouse to the right, and we can choose this different fill mode. And then I can release Z and we can see how very easily we can do all sorts of operations. So I can either choose a bridge between two edges, or I can just do a click drag inside the hole and I can fill this entire boundary edge. We have control and click. This will move our points or our components. So this works again on all of the components by holding down control and dragging. Then we have a shift click, so this will slide a component. We can see here how this works on the edges. I believe this works on the face, but this is probably, we have to do this on either points or edges. We have control shift click, which will slide an entire loop. So I will hold down control shift, click drag, and we slide the entire loop. And if I use the control shift modifier on one point, we can slide this on edges. So we can slide the point on edges. If I just want to move the point around, I will hold down just control and click drag my point around. And if I want to slide on the surface, I will just hold down shift and this will slide it on the surface. Also something really cool, I don't know if this is mentioned here, but if you are sliding a point, so if I hold down shift and slide a point, if I go near another point, we can see that it will snap to this point and it will fuse it with that point. So we can either choose to fuse the points by just simply click dragging the point to the next point, or I can do this. For example, if I want to connect or rather weld this point to this point, we would need a connection between them in order for this weld two edge points to work. So now I would be able to weld that. But if I don't have this connection, I can just simply hold down shift, drag this over here until it snaps, and we can see that all of these points are merged now. So if I just hold down control and move it and move the point around, we can see that the points are fused. So let's maybe undo this. So we can also use combinations with our middle mouse button. So if I hold down control and select a point, this will push it along the normal. This also works on edges. And if I want to move an entire loop along the normal, we can hold down control shift, middle mouse button drag, and we can push an entire loop along the normal. So all of this is really useful and helpful. And now with simple click, we have delete, and this works over again all of the components. Control shift click will delete an entire loop. And we also have some options here to flatten loop and restore loop curvature. So if we had maybe a messed up curve that we want to maybe smooth out, I'm not sure exactly how this curvature is calculated. But for example, if I want to smooth out this loop, I will hold down Control Shift and middle mouse click on an edge. And we can see how this will now try to align it based on the loops next to it. And after we do this operation, I believe we can also use the palm slider to adjust this further. So if I hold down Z and move my mouse to the right, we can see how we can adjust our loop curvature. So if I move this all the way to the left, we flatten this so it's nice and straight. We can also see the different operations that we can do here with the palm slider. So this is again by holding Z. If we hold down Z while doing some of these operations. These are the options that we have, and again we can just simply tab Z to do some other operations as well. So once you get used to this Polypen tool, everything becomes extremely easy. So for example, let's say that maybe I will select all of these faces here, Shift F will create an extrusion. Let's do another Shift F, hold down Shift to create an inset, and maybe here we'll do another Shift F and extrude this downward, and I will go into Polypen mode. Again, I will hold down Q, move my mouse to the right really fast, and then release Q. So now I'm in Polypen mode, and with shift click we can insert edge loops, we can insert some loops over here, and we can start to create our nice subdivision surface. So we'll just add some loops over here by simply shift clicking. So now, for example, if I want to, let's add another loop over here, and maybe let's add a couple more here as well, and maybe let's do a shift click to add a loop, and if I hold down Z and move my mouse to the right, we can see this is the palm slider adjusting that I was referring to earlier. So we can definitely do something like this. And now, for example, I can grab this loop in the middle, hold down Control Shift and middle mouse drag to push this along the normal, and now I can either bevel this node. So if I want to go out of the Polypen mode, all I would have to do is just simply go inside a component selection mode. So I will hold down tilde and go to edge mode, double click the edge to select the loop, Shift B to create a bevel, and then just click drag on the viewport here to adjust my width, hold down Z, move to the right to add another loop, and if I want to go back in the Polypen mode, hold down Q and drag to the right really fast, and now we are back into Polypen, and I can do further adjustment. Maybe I want to create some sort of topology here like this. Maybe I want to get rid of this entire row of edge. I will just control Shift click, and this will get rid of the loop. And now I can just get rid of these 2 points, so we can do something like this. Obviously this doesn't make sense, so maybe in a different video I will actually work on some geometry that actually exists so we can see everything in action, but this is essentially how it works. So now if I want to preview, for example, this mesh in subdivision mode, we can press F1, and this will append a preview subdi node over here. We can choose how many subdivisions we want, so we can increase this from the default of 3. And if I want to go back in the regular mesh mode, I can press escape, and this will get rid of the subdi preview. And also I can press F2, and this will go into wire shaded subdivision. And again, I will press escape to get rid of that. So we can always just press F1 to check how our mesh will subdivide. Press escape, go back. So this is pretty much how you can work with this. And again, we have a lot of different things that we can do. For example, we have a lot of transform, really cool transform tools. So if we go to the modeler transform, we can see all of the different stuff that we can do here. I believe if I want to use the brush mode, we have a hotkey for this. So I can always refer to the hotkey window here. Let's look for brush, or maybe I think this is sculpt. Let's use sculpt move. So this is Control Q. I will press Control Q, go with my sculpt tool, and maybe I want to make some broad strokes like this. And for smoothing, I believe we need, let's look for our sculpt relax. So this is smooth, I believe. Let's use Control R, and now we can relax or smooth our topology. But I think relax is different from smooth. So if I want to smooth, I will hold down Shift and start to paint around. And I believe this is the regular sculpt tool that Houdini comes with, so the latest version of Houdini. So we can also cycle through some of these modes over here. If I want to, I can go to, if I press 1, 2, 3 and so on, I can maybe change through some of these modes. So if I want to go back to the move tool, I can press 4, and now I can move my topology around, and I think 6 will be smooth. So now I can smooth this, or I can remain in the move tool and just hold down Shift and drag to smooth out the mesh. So we have this, and we also have, if I go into points mode, we have a bunch of straighten or flatten tools. So for example, if I want to straighten up this edge over here, I can select this point, hold down Shift A and select the point at the end here, or maybe we can select the entire loop of points. And if I hold down Alt F, this will give us some of the most common transform operations that we have. So if I flatten left, we arrange all of these points perfectly on the left. And then we have some further adjusting that we can do over here. So we can move the entire selection if we want, and we can further control some more options over here. So really, really powerful, especially when it comes to hard surface modeling. So for example, if we don't want to have a straight line, maybe we have something like, let's maybe move all of these points to the right. We'll do something like this, and I want to straighten this edge now, so I can select this point, and let's select this as the last point, and I will go to Alt F, and we have this straighten option over here. So now we can see that it will arrange all of the points that we selected in between our first and last points to have this straight edge. So Alt F will be the radial menu with a lot of these transform operations. Alt D will give us some display properties, so I can preview this as wireframe or smooth wire if we want. Alt W will be our topology radial menu. We'll go over this in a second. Alt Q if we want to drop down some meshes, and also on the note for this Alt Q radial menu, earlier I showed you that if I don't have anything selected, this will just drop down some of these primitives in the center of the scene. But for example, if I were to grab a face over here, so let's go into face mode and I select this face, if I do Alt Q and create a Q tube, for example, this will align it on the normal of our face. And now I can select the columns here by holding down Z and dragging, and with simple click dragging, we can select the radius as well. And I believe this placement on the selected face is so we can do very quick Boolean operations, so we can do a Boolean union if we want. But I've only been using the new modeler for a few days now, and I haven't tested a lot of these workflows, but I'm just guessing this is probably why we have this option to place the primitives on our selection. So I'll get rid of this, and let's go back to our mesh. And one cool feature with the modeler with the transform tools is if we grab, let's go to faces, let's grab a selection like this, and we can select here, let's do 2 circle, and this will create a perfect circle from our selection. And now from here we can do Shift F. Let's do an inset by holding down Shift. Let's do another extrude like this, Shift F again to extrude one more time, and let's do another one, and we just want to inset this one. Let's do Shift F, do something like this. Let's preview this in subd. Alright, so we will probably have to add some edge loops. I can go to the Polypen mode. I will shift click to add some supporting loops over here like so, and very easily now I can get the shape that I want. Maybe we'll need one more over here, and this Polypen mode is really cool to really control topology. So for example, if I wanted to, let's add an edge over here and maybe add some loops, I can now go into face mode, grab all of these faces, and I will press Shift F and drag this in. So now, for example, if I wanted to, this would be a little bit more tricky to create a subdivision surface for this. So if I press F1, it looks something like this, but if I go in the Polypen mode, I can start to add some supporting edge loops. Maybe we'll just do this on one edge, so we can do something like this. So if I press F1 now to go into subd, we see we have this hard edge, so we would have to somehow flow this topology in a different direction. So I can click drag to add a cut over here, maybe get rid of these edges by simply clicking on them. And now I would probably have to loop this edge in this direction. Maybe we can do something like this. Now I'm also a little rusty with poly modeling, and this is probably not what we want, but maybe this is just to illustrate the capabilities of the modeler. So maybe here, instead of doing what I did over here, I can just hold down Control Shift and drag this entire loop below, so we flow it in this direction, and I will hold down Control Shift click to get rid of these extra loops that we have over here. So let's Control Shift click again, and maybe I will just merge these 2 points and maybe just get rid of this. So if I do a subd preview here, we kind of got rid of this edge, but we have a little bit of pinching. Now again, this isn't probably the proper way to do this. There are a few tricks that you can do in terms of topology to really make this work. We would probably have to add a little bit more subdivisions here. So for example, maybe let's get rid of some of these loops over here. And now maybe I can do a shift click to add a loop. And if I do control shift click, this will change the curvature of our loop. And I can hold down Z to maybe pull this in a little bit. If I press F1, we can go into subd mode, and maybe we need to adjust this. Now I'm really not doing a good job with the topology over here. This is kind of messy. One more note about edge flow. We also have a really cool edge flow tool. If we go to edges and select this loop, I will do Control Shift F, and this will give me this edge flow, which is really cool. So I believe that by default this will try to maintain the curvature of our shape, but if I hold down Z, I can adjust this. I can adjust the tension here as well, and the algorithm for this, I usually find that it gives really good results. And now if I want, I can go back into Polypen mode and I can keep working on this. And again, you can see these suggestions that we get to create these parallel lines. Also the cut, we can cut across multiple different edges and it will automatically do a connection with all of the edges. So really just with the Polypen tool, there's a lot of different stuff you can do. Like I said, I haven't found this in any software. A simple tool like this, which contains all of these operations. So pretty much everything that you need when you really want to refine the geometry, and especially when you redirect your edge flow, this is really useful because you can be really fast with this. So if I do something like this, I can just connect this over here, go ahead and delete these, hold down shift, and this will slide on the surface, and we can very easily do something like this, and it just feels really good. And if you have done some previous direct modeling in the past, you know how important just the feel of the tool is. And because this is really responsive and it doesn't have any stutters or stuff like that, it really feels super nice to model with this Polypen and then combining it with all of the other tools in Modeler. So like I mentioned earlier, there are really a lot of tools, way too many to cover in one single video, but one final thing that I want to go over is some of the retopology tools. And for this we are going to need something to act as our high resolution mesh. So I will just drop down a Tommy test geometry in our scene, and let's go ahead, let's get rid of clothing and textures. So let's say that I want to use this as my geometry template. I will go up over here, and if I do Alt W, we can access the radial menu for the retopology tools. And to activate topology and to sort of go into topo mode, we can select this topo option over here. So I will select this, and then it says we have to select our high poly object, so I will select Tommy. Then we have to select an object to extend. So if we already had an existing mesh that we want to keep working on, we would select this. But in this case, since we are starting from scratch, we don't have a mesh, I will just press escape. And now this will configure our high quality mesh to be in sort of like this retopology mode. So we are inside topo build to begin with, and this is the standard topo build that Houdini comes with, meaning that now I can simply start to create topology. And the way that I usually like to work with this, for example, I like to start by just simply placing down points. So in order, we can just click to add a point, and we can see that by default it will try to create this geometry like so. Now, like I said, I usually like to set the points first, so I will go ahead and let's undo all of this. And to only place points, I can middle click to cancel this line thing over here. So I will just middle mouse click, and then I'm able to just simply place my points. So I can do something like this. And now I can start from the beginning, so I can drop another point over here. And if I click this point again, this will now bring back this line connection, so I can create my topology this way. And if for some reason you are not getting the correct placement, you can maybe choose a different angle in the viewport. So I can create the topology like so. And this is what I would do normally. And again, these are the regular topology tools that Houdini provides. So let's middle mouse click to cancel. And what we have in Modeler is going to be the draw patch tool. So if I do Alt W again, we can select this patch tool over here, and with this selected I can very easily start to fill entire areas with quads. So if I click drag, we can draw an edge or a curve rather, like this, and I will draw maybe another curve over here, and let's try to just simply create a patch. We will connect this over here, and now we are going to get, we can see this outline of the grid that we are creating. So I can press 3 to turn the grid into actual polygons, and now I can keep iterating on this, and I can extend this again with the draw patch. So I'm still in the draw patch tool over here, and if I want I can extend this over here, so I can click drag to add these curves, and let's make sure that these are all connected. And if I connect this over here back to my existing polygons, we can see that we get this outline of the patch that we are creating. And if I hover over any of these lines, we can see that they turn green. And while the curves are green, I can use my scroll wheel to increase the divisions of the curve, and we can see that automatically this will generate new patches for us, which is really cool. So we can very easily start to fill a lot of topology and easily block out our mesh. So I can hover over the curve, I can use my scroll wheel to increase, and maybe I will use my scroll wheel to decrease, in this case the curve over here. And once we have a outline of our grid, let's maybe decrease this over here as well. We'll do something like this maybe. We also have some options that we can play around with here, so we can use this rotate patch maybe if we want this topology to flow in a different way. So maybe in this case I do want to rotate this patch. Let's set this back to 0, and I can also switch this to a different algorithm, quads. Now this isn't really as good as the grid algorithm as we can see, but sometimes you might want this quads mode again in certain situations, but usually I will use this grid patch type. So again, we can rotate this patch. Maybe we can do something like this, depending on how I want the topology to flow. Now, obviously, these things are usually done better if you plan them out ahead of time, but this is really cool. So now if I want to commit to this grid, I will just press 3 to draw these polygons. So now I can go, for example, in my brush mode with the regular topo tool. So I will press Alt W, go to smooth, use my scroll wheel to increase the brush size, and I can start to smooth things out. And if we go Alt W, we can go to the regular brush tool, which is used for moving things around. And if I want to just use the regular topo build, we can press Alt W and go to build mode. And now I can go ahead and maybe individually start to move things around, and these will conform to the geometry. So maybe I can move the boundary edges a little bit, and I can also extend this if I want. So this is again the standard way that topo build node works. So maybe I can grab the entire loop instead. Let's cancel on this, hold down Shift A, select this entire loop, and then I will press click so I can extend these edges. So we can do stuff like this. Let's undo that and escape. And again, I will go to the smooth tool here from my Alt W menu, and we can smooth our mesh. And one really cool thing that the topo build comes with, if we go in topo build, we can press Shift and 6 to go into this skin mode. So we can see that the hotkey for this is Shift and 6, but you have to be first in the topo build node. And if I click drag across a sort of like a circular mesh, like in this case we want to fill in the neck, I can just click drag to create a curve, and I will click drag again to create a second curve. And if I do Control and drag, we can connect these curves. So now if I use my scroll wheel, I can increase the columns, and if I hold down Control and use my scroll wheel, I can also increase the rows. So we can do something like this, and I can press enter to commit to these changes. And now I can keep working. Now we have some options here to bridge polygons, I believe. So if we go to Shift 1, here are a lot of here is a lot of stuff that we can do, but really this is kind of awkward to work with. So in this case, what I want to do, in order to create maybe a bridge between these edges here and these edges at the bottom, we can go out of the topo build mode. So if I use the tilde hotkey and hover over edges, now I'm in edge mode, and we are no longer in this topo build mode. So now I can simply select the edges just like how I would do with any other mesh. And we can see here that we have 5 edges selected. So then I can do another selection here, and let's select again maybe 2, 3, 4, and 5 edges. And now I can press B to create this bridge, hold down Z, move my mouse to the right to increase the divisions. And now again, I'm no longer in topo build mode, so this new geometry that we added doesn't conform to the mesh. But if we go to our radial menu, so if I do Alt W, we can see that this topo icon is highlighted. So this means that we are still connected to our template geometry, meaning that if I go back to the build, we can see how automatically this new geometry that we added conform to our mesh. So whatever operations we do outside of the topo mode, we can simply go back to topo build and it will conform to our template mesh. So for example here as well, let's say that I'm going to go into edge mode. I'm no longer in the topo build mode. I can select this edge and this edge with shift. We can do B for bridge. Let's do Z to add maybe a couple of rows. And now, for example, here, maybe I can just select this entire patch. And let's see if we press Ctrl F to create a polyfill and hold down Z, move this around. Maybe we can get, we don't really have a good solve, but for example now I can just go in the Polypen mode and I can clean up this geometry myself. So maybe I can, maybe I want to flow this over here. We'll add another edge over here and delete some of these. So if I want to do something very specific, I can always just use the Polypen mode to do this. So we can also see our Polypen over here, and watch what happens when we go back. If I press Alt W and we go back into build mode, this topo build node that we added will reference our original mesh all the way up here to the top. So this is our high resolution mesh, and we are always going to reference this mesh as long as this topo icon here is, we can see that this is highlighted. So again here I can go into smooth, I can increase the radius, I can smooth out some of these polygons, and if you find that the brush doesn't work, you just have to change the angle. I believe that this might be bugged in Houdini, kind of depends on the version that you're using, so just make sure that you change the angle if you don't find that this works as it should. And now, for example, if I no longer want to reference our topo mesh, if we, for example, want to end this connection with our high quality mesh, I will press Alt W, and now if I activate topo, we see that all of our nodes, all of our operations that we did are collapsed inside this stash node. So now this essentially just merged all of our operations into a simple mesh, and we are no longer connected with our high resolution mesh. So, and we see now that the topo icon is no longer highlighted. So if I do build from here, it doesn't know what kind of mesh to reference. So I'll get rid of this. And now, for example, if we want to continue on the same mesh or a different mesh, let's go up, and we have our high quality mesh over here. Maybe we can rename this to HQ mesh, and this is our Retopo mesh. We'll do something like this. So now if I want to activate, if I want to link these back together, if I do Alt W and select topo, I will first select my high quality mesh. And now if we want to continue on this mesh, I will just simply select this mesh. And we can see now that our stash node is linked to our high quality mesh. And from here we can go ahead, and if I want, I can use the draw patch. So I will select this patch tool over here. I can draw a patch, press 3 to commit to our grid, and we can see that this is appended over here, and we can keep working like this. Now this draw patch tool is extremely powerful. It's so easy to just quickly fill out an entire mesh in exactly the way that you want. We can see how seamless this works, and it's really pleasant to use. And I believe the first time that I saw this kind of tool was with Topogun, and I used Topogun in the past, and really 90% of the reason that I used Topogun was specifically for this patch tool that we now have in Modeler. So this is really a godsend when it comes to topology, because we can quickly fill out an entire mesh, and then with the Polypen tool and with all of the other Modeler operations, we can come in and we can really fine-tune our mesh however we see fit. So one other thing that I saw in the demo that Alexei posted was doing something like this, so we can do a patch over here in the back. We can do something like this, press 3, and now I will go into edge mode, select these edges. So we have 4 edges selected. Let's select 4 edges at the bottom here. Let's press B, hold down Z to increase the divisions, press Z again to set this to curve mode. So we can see that with Z, if I just simply tap it, it switches this mode. And now if I do Alt W, go into build mode, this will now conform to our mesh. We can go into smooth again with Alt W and we can start to smooth things out. We also have a lot of cool mirror tools. So if I press Alt X, this will be our mirror radial menu. So to start off with, let's say that I want to mirror this mesh on the X axis. So I will select this X over here. And now if I go back into this tool, we can see that the X is highlighted. So I can do a clip. This will split it right down the middle on the X dimension, and I can do a mirror from here. So really cool. Let's maybe do another clip. And we also have a radial menu for Alt V, and this is symmetrized. So this works similarly to the mirror menu. And we can see here that we don't have the best topology. So let's undo this. We'll go into Polypen mode. We'll add some topology wherever we need. Clean this up real quick like so. Slide things around if we want. Hold down Shift to just slide an edge, press Alt X to mirror. So now this is perfect. We can increase the seam tolerance over here. And again, a lot of these nodes will have some really cool parameters that you can play with. So then we can continue with our block out. We can go into build mode. I will press Shift 6 and we can maybe block out this entire piece of the arm, hold down Control and drag. Maybe lower the divisions with my scroll wheel and hold down Control to add some rows as well. Press Enter. And now we would have to just connect this with our existing mesh, or we can just go into the patch tool here and maybe we want to, let's probably try to connect this with our other side of the mesh. We'll do something like this and we might want to play around with the divisions here. Now obviously this is done without any planning, so maybe I can commit to this. We'll go back into, or rather switch to the Polypen tool, and we can now do some very specific geometry manipulation. We can do something like this maybe, and we'll have to clean this up or set this flow in some other place. Let's do something like this. Get rid of some of these points and edges. Alright, and now again I will just go into smooth tool and this will automatically go in the topo build mode and conform it to the mesh. We can now smooth this from a different angle. We'll try something like this and I can press F1 to preview the sub D. Let's press escape to go out. We can go into edge mode, select all of these edges, maybe 4 edges here. Let's do 4 edges at the bottom as well. Press B, Z to increase the divisions. We can press Z again to make this, to try to maintain the curvature that we already have. Go back into smooth mode. This will conform it to the mesh. So hopefully this gives you a good idea on some of the workflows that we have in Modeler. And really I want to mention this again, that I've only been reaccustomed to Modeler again in the last couple of days or so, and there's really a lot more features that I'm showing here. So now again, if I want, I can select Topo again to get rid of this connection. And here now I can press Alt D to maybe, let's go into isolate objects. So Alt D again will be some display options that we have. And now I'm in just standard mesh editing. I can select maybe these faces over here. Let's go to our modeler mesh maybe, or modeler transform. Let's do to circle, and we can maybe, let's press G to go into manipulator mode, R to rotate. We can do Shift F and let's inset this maybe like so. Bring this out, or rather in a little bit. Let's do another Shift F and holding down Shift will create an inset. We can see that there's kind of a pinching going on over here. So I can press Shift R and this will relax. So if I click drag now, this will relax our polygons. Really, really helpful as well. And we also have a cool option here to maintain shape. So if we were to do this operation on a curved surface, if we turn on this maintain shape, this will try to maintain the curvature feature that was already there, which is really helpful and something that a lot of relaxed tools in other softwares don't really have. So we can go into Polypen mode and we can shift click to create maybe some supporting loops over here, and if I press F1 we have this really cool kind of mesh, and I'll press escape to go out and we can continue to iterate on our mesh. We can select the faces, shift F to extrude, and we can see that once you get going it's really fast, especially with this Polypen tool. We can really pick up a lot of speed in terms of direct modeling. So this is all I wanted to showcase for now. If you want me to make more videos like this about Modeler, let me know in the comments, and we might do something like actually modeling a mesh, or maybe retopologizing a mesh from scratch, or at least show you how it would work on a real world project. So if you are into direct modeling, into poly modeling, I will highly recommend this modeler tool. It's really great. It's an essential tool that you need to have in Houdini. And not only this fills this gap that Houdini has when it comes to direct modeling, I would say that it's even on par or better than other dedicated DCCs out there like Maya or Blender, especially vanilla Blender. So Blender without any add-ons, it's pretty okay, but it's really lacking. You would have to purchase quite a few add-ons in order to do a lot of really simple stuff, I would say. So I think this modeler tool is a really good contender, and it's just really nice to have this in Houdini. On top of that, Alexei is constantly working on this for years now, and this latest iteration really feels like its own software right inside of Houdini. And he's always improving tools and making the integration more seamless. And you can really feel that this was developed by an actual modeling artist, because usually with other software, the tools are developed by people who don't necessarily model but just know coding. And in the case for Modeler, you can really feel when you're working that this was designed specifically for modeling artists. So I really can't recommend this enough. Alexei was also kind enough to hook me up with a special link, so if you want to purchase it, you will find the link in the description. And I will also provide the link to the official Discord Modeler server, where Alexei is super active and is always answering questions, so feel free to join that as well. But that's it for this video, and as always, if you want to learn more Houdini, check out voxsite.com for more tutorials, and I will see you in the next lesson.